After an initial review of the reasons for using survey methods, the chapter goes through the major steps in questionnaire design and considers the features of 4 types of surveys, highlighting the unique problems of each and suggesting possible solutions. Important ethical issues are discussed in this chapter in the final section, and by the end of the chapter, you should be well on your way to becoming an informed consumer of survey reports and a knowledgeable developer of survey designs. Also, you will become a more informed student of the methodological issues surrounding the measurement of violent victimization in the United States. Data can be collected from many people at relatively low cost and, depending on the survey design, relatively quickly. Many variables can be measured without substantially increasing the time or cost of data collection. Attractive features of survey research could also be generalizability, the probability sampling from large populations. They also allow a range of social contexts and subgroups that can be sampled. The Omnibus Survey covers a range of topics of interest to different social scientists. There is a general social survey, short for GSS here. This is one of the most successful surveys of the National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago. It has a split ballot design, which is a unique set of questions or other modifications in a survey that's administered to randomly selected subsets of the total survey sample. So this way, more questions can be included in the entire survey, or so that the responses to different questions or versions of the questions can be compared as well. When we design questionnaires, the questionnaire or the interview schedule is the central feature of the survey process. Questionnaires are surveys or instruments that contain the questions for a self-administered survey. And then the interview schedule is an important component that contains, the questionnaire contains all the questions asked by the interviewer during this interview schedule for an in-person or sometimes a phone interview. The correct design of a questionnaire varies with the specific survey method that's used. To maintain focus during the questionnaire and interview process, the survey should be guided by a well-defined inquiry and a definitively targeted population. Surveys often include too many irrelevant questions and fail to include questions that the researchers realize later are crucial. This can be very detrimental to the survey process as a whole, and oftentimes we can get answers to the surveys that we're not quite looking for. When we build on existing instruments, this would be like if evidence from previous surveys indicates that these already formulated questions provide a good measure of concept or behaviors you're interested in, then go ahead and use them again. When we look at research in a diverse society, we want to consider the translation to something. So should the survey be translated into multiple languages in addition to just English, or how many variations do we need if it's a cultural diverse population that you're looking for? You must ensure that the concepts you're measuring have equivalents in different cultures. This can be a very challenging part to designing surveys when you're looking at cross-cultural studies. Open-ended questions are survey questions to which the respondent replies in his or her own words, either by writing or by talking, so this is more of a qualitative approach. The interpretive questions include a questionnaire or interview schedule to help explain answers to other important questions. And then the fixed choice questions is a close-ended questions in which the format respondents are provided with explicit responses from which to select. We also call this like a Likert scale if they have to kind of rate things on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or something like that. Likert is another word for this. So it's important to construct clear and meaningful questions. Survey questions need to be clear, to the point. They need to convey the intended meaning to the respondents. Be brief, be to the point. The reference period is a time frame in which a survey question asks respondents to place a particular behavior, such as, identifying something that's happened in the last 6 months or the last year or 2 months. Avoid negative words and double negatives. Negative questions are a question or statement that contains two negatives, which can muddy the meaning. Avoid double-barreled questions. These can be a single survey question that actually asks two questions but only allows one answer. Avoid making either disagreement or agreement disagreeable. You should impartially present both sides of the attitude scale in the question itself. Write a question and response choices that make agreement seem acceptable. And for fixed response questions, response choices should be mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive responses or response choices on a survey that do not overlap. And we'll finish this on the next slide. So also about the fixed question responses, we have exhaustive responses. These are response choices on a survey in which every case can be classified as having one attribute. And then I mentioned the Likert type response earlier. So this is where they agree or disagree with statements. You strongly agree, somewhat agree, neutral, disagree, or strongly disagree. And then we have fence sitters and floaters. So survey respondents who see themselves as being neutral on an issue. So they'll often choose that middle option if they're a fence sitter. And floaters, these survey respondents tend to provide an opinion on a topic in response to a closed-ended question that does not include a don't know option, but will choose don't know if it is available. So you want to try and utilize filtered questions. Filtered questions are a survey question that's used to identify a subset of respondents who are then asked other questions. Skip patterns is the unique combination of questions created in a survey by filter questions and contingent questions. And then contingent questions are asked only of a subset of survey respondents. Demographic questions are an important part that allow you to identify age, race, marital status, socioeconomic status, etc. Sometimes religion. These are important independent variables that will help to provide appropriate information on the reliability and validity of the test, as well as you compare it to other similar demographical backgrounds. The other thing you want to do is don't forget to pre-test. No questionnaire should be considered ready for use until it's been pre-tested. Try answering the questionnaire yourself and then revise it. Select a small sample of individuals from the population that you're studying and try out the questionnaire on them. Organization matters in the questionnaire. Question order can lead to context effects when one or more questions influence how subsequent questions are interpreted. Context effects occurs in a survey when one or more questions influence how these questions are interpreted. Beware of potential problems due to question order and carefully evaluate the likelihood of their occurrence. The cover letter is sent with a mailed questionnaire which explains the survey's purpose and encourages the respondent to participate. So there's a few characteristics here. Credible. The letter should establish that the research is conducted by a researcher or organization. The respondent is likely to accept as a credible, unbiased authority. Personalized. The cover letter should include a personalized salutation, not just "Dear Student." Refer to the respondent in the second person, such as your participation, and then close with the researcher's signature. The statement should interest the respondent in the contents of the questionnaire for the interesting section. And then responsible, reassure that the respondent that the information you obtain will be treated confidentially. Include a phone number the respondent can use if he or she has questions or would like a summary of the final report. When we design the survey, we want to consider the manner of administration. The 5 survey designs in the manner in which the questionnaire is administered. Mailed, group, and electronic surveys are completed by the respondents themselves. During phone and in-person interviews, however, the researcher or staff person asks questions and records the respondents' answers. The questionnaire structure is the survey design, also differs in the extent to which the content and order of questions are structured and advanced by the researcher. These could be mailed, group, phone, or electronic surveys. The setting: most mail as well as electronic questionnaires and phone interviews are intended for completion by only one respondent. On the other hand, a variant of the standard survey is a questionnaire distributed simultaneously to a group of respondents who complete the survey while the researcher or assistant waits. And then, as mentioned earlier, in-person interviews are most expensive type of survey for cost. For mailed surveys, a survey involving a mailed questionnaire to be completed by the respondent, there's ways to maximize response rates. Make the questionnaire attractive with plenty of white space. Use contingent questions and skip patterns infrequently. When they're necessary, guide respondents visually through the pattern. Make individual questions clear and understandable to all the respondents. No interviewers will be on hand to clarify the meaning of these questions or probe for additional details. Use no more than a few open-ended questions. Respondents are likely to be put off by having the idea of having to write out answers. Include that personalized and professional cover letter using an altruistic appeal. Informing respondents that their response will do some good seems to produce a 7% higher response rate than indicating that respondents will receive something for their participation. Having a credible research sponsor. According to one investigation, a sponsor known to respondents may increase the rate of response by as much as 17%. The next most credible sponsors are the state headquarters of an organization and then other people in a similar field. Publishing firms, college professors, or students and private associations elicit the lowest response rates. Write an identifying number on the questionnaire so you can determine who the non-respondents are. A small incentive can help. Even a coupon or a ticket worth $2 can be enough to increase the response rate. Include a stamped self-addressed return envelope with the questionnaire. Most important, use follow-up mailings to encourage initial non-respondents to return a completed questionnaire. Send a reminder postcard thanking respondents and reminding non-respondents to all sample members 2 weeks after the initial mailing went out. Send a replacement questionnaire with a new cover letter only to non-respondents about 3 or 4 weeks after the initial mailing. And then send another replacement questionnaire with a new cover letter 8 weeks after the initial mailing by certified mail if possible, although it can be pretty expensive. When you conduct group administered surveys, this is a type of survey that's completed by individual respondents who are assembled in a group. Typically, for a survey like this, the response rate is not usually a concern in this design. One issue of special concern is the possibility that respondents will feel coerced to participate and will be less likely to answer questions honestly. The phone survey: interviewers question respondents over the phone and record their answers. Research sampling units: drawing a random sample is easier than ever due to random digit dialing, or RDD for short. Maximizing response to phone surveys will include multiple callbacks. These are necessary. Interviewers must be prepared for distractions if the respondent is interrupted. Rapport between the interviewer and respondent is likely to be lower. And computer-assisted telephone interviews is an interview in which the questionnaire is programmed into the computer along with relevant skip patterns that must be followed. It essentially combines the tasks of interviewing, data entry, and some data cleaning. And then we have computer interactive voice response, which is a software that uses a touch-tone telephone to interact with people in order to acquire information or enter data into a database. Interviewer questions and respondents record their answers in an in-person interview. Response rates are higher. Questionnaires can be complex. They can be both open and close-ended. Respondents' interpretations of questions can be probed and clarified. And then we have computer-assisted personal interview, where the interviewer carries a laptop computer program to display the interview questions and to process the responses that the interviewer types in, as well as to check that these responses fall within the allowed ranges. The computer-assisted self-interview, these respondents interact with a computer-administered questionnaire by using a mouse and following audio instructions delivered via headphones. To maximize response to interviews, due to the difficulty of catching all the members of a sample, response rates may suffer. Problems with responses can be lessened with an advanced letter introducing the survey project and by multiple contact attempts throughout the day and the evening. The electronic survey is sent and answered by a computer, either through email or on the web. And then we have a mixed mode survey. These are conducted by more than one method, allowing the strengths of one survey design to compensate for the weakness of another and maximize the likelihood of securing data from different types of respondents. For example, non-respondents in a mail survey may be interviewed in person or over the phone. And then a comparison of survey designs is the most important consideration in comparing the advantages and disadvantages of the 4 survey designs is the likely response rate that they will generate. Errors in survey research. For a survey to succeed, it must minimize 4 types of error. Poor measurement. These are errors in measurement that arise for many reasons, such as when respondents are unwilling to disclose their feelings and behaviors, unable to remember past events, and misunderstand survey questions. Non-response is a major and growing problem in survey research, although it is a problem that varies between particular survey designs. Inadequate coverage of the population is when a poor sampling frame can invalidate the results of an otherwise well-designed survey. And then we have sampling errors that occur in the process of collecting these surveys from people, from respondents. There's ethical issues in survey research that arise, so it's important to remember to protect the respondents. The researcher will keep interviews confidential and anonymous. This minimizes the distress of reliving victimization events and providing information on services and resources. Even more complicated when asking victims that are against minor children. Confidentiality is important. The researcher must proceed carefully and ensure that the respondents' rights are protected. Do no harm to your respondents, and be sure that the information is kept in a safe and secure location, and consider omitting or modifying potentially troublesome questions.